Welcome back. 9 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, tenants are still fighting and advocating to protect families from eviction and demanding rent cancellations. Joining us now to discuss is Fitzroy Christian, Community Action for Safe Apartments, aka CASA Leader. Thank you so much for joining us again. Fitzroy, you're not a new member to the show. You've been here before and you've helped us so much during the pandemic with the information that our tenants in the Bronx need. So thank you.
And thank you for having me again.
Absolutely.
It's my pleasure to be here with you.
So to start, Fitzroy, just last month, housing courts began processing cases. And according to the Housing Data Collective, nearly 50% of those cases came from here in the Bronx. Can you share more about this and how CASA is fighting against this trend?
Well, we know already that the Bronx is the most affected of virtually everything that happens bad in New York City, right? Historically, there have been more cases in housing courts in the Bronx than in any other borough, even though we are not the largest borough by a very large margin. So it should not be surprising that most of the cases that are back in court now, especially since the Bronx is the new frontier, the new area to be gentrified, that we should not be surprised that this is what is happening. But the news gets worse as we go along, because now we are, as you said, 9 months into the pandemic. There's a second or third surge, depending on whom you want to speak to, the governor or the mayor. And things are getting worse than they were a month or so ago. And again, the Bronx is being hit hardest. And with all of the cases that have been brought to court, now that all of the restrictions and all of the administrative orders that came down from the court, the Office of the Court Administration, are lifted, the Bronx is the one where we see the most cases already and have been brought to court.
And Fitzroy, when we talk about those cases coming to the court, we're also talking about a potential packed courtroom, no? A housing court that will be packed here in the Bronx. Is a concern also that the COVID-19 cases will rise the more people go to these courts?
Yes, and this is why we are campaigning to keep the courts closed. Because technologically, the Bronx is also the least equipped. And we also have an aging population, and most of those people do not have the technology to do remote hearings. So they're going to be forced to go to court. We are not satisfied that the courtrooms have been properly deep cleaned, nor are we comfortable with the fact that they're going to be letting only a few people in at a time. And then our seniors, people who need help, are going to be left outside now that it is cold, until those people who are inside, the 10 or 12 who they may have inside, come out, and then they will be let in. So nothing of any of the logistics about how they're going to conduct in-person court hearings, those people who do not have the ability to have the hearings remotely. Nothing has satisfied us. So we are deeply concerned about the unnecessary exposure of vulnerable people to COVID, and even exposing them to extreme cold weather, waiting outside the courtrooms as people come in and out and they rotate them.
That is definitely a huge concern for tenants and for Bronxites in general. Another concern that I wanted to bring up was evictions. Can a tenant be evicted if they have not paid their rent throughout the pandemic? Can you just help us navigate that, Fitzroy?
I'm going to start with an answer everybody uses and laughs, but it is very serious. Yes and no. This is the way it works. And I'm including all of the so-called relief efforts that both the city, state, and federal governments have claimed that they're providing. If you can show that you were financially affected by COVID, you cannot be evicted on that basis, even if you owe rent. What would happen is between the courts and your own offer, you could negotiate a pay schedule with your landlord. But he cannot, the court will not evict you because you owe rent now. The problem is that a lot of us don't have the wherewithal to be paying tens of thousands of dollars that we have accumulated in rent arrears and still stay current when this pandemic is over, or even during the pandemic when we go to court and we have our hearings. What can happen is that as you accumulate debts and you're unable to pay, they can bring you to court again, and the chances are you can't be evicted at that time, which means it's not because you owe, but now, because you're not being evicted for what you owe now, but you're going to be evicted because you do not have the financial means to clear up your debt now.
Got it.
Also, they would have the opportunity for the first time to take you to small claims court or to the civil court, where they can get, because they can now get a monetary damages for what you owe. They get a decision to collect their money. So when you begin to work, they can then garnish your salaries. If you have a vehicle, probably for work or whatever reason, they could take it. Any of your assets can be attached as the landlords make an effort to get what you owe them. So then you're not going to be able to pay your rent when your salaries are garnished. And so they could bring you to court again, and you're still exposed to being evicted, because that did not happen because you lost your job, because you're working now. You're back at work. So you can be evicted at that. So it's still COVID related, but they do not see it that way.
Got it. Thank you, Fitzroy. And let's say a tenant has a concern as of right now. What are some tenant rights? What do tenants have the right to at this moment?
Well, the best right, as you may put it, but it is still not something that we're happy with, is that anyone who's brought to court now, regardless of their economic status, the zip codes, they are entitled to free legal assistance under the right to counsel. So tenants should know that, yes, the moment you get your notice that you have been taken to court for arrears, you'll be notified by the court, and the landlords should notify you that you are entitled to free legal assistance and where in your area you should go to avail yourself of that free legal assistance. Housing Code Answers is one of the primary citywide agencies and organizations that would have that information. Their number is 212-962-4795. Again, 212-962-4795. Housing Court Answers. They're citywide. They have a presence in each of the housing courts throughout the city, and they're open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5. They will be able to tell you, depending on your borough and where you locate, which zip codes you're in, which of the community legal services may be available to you, and how you could go to make sure that you get legal representation when you go to court.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that important resource with our viewers. And let's say a specific question: if a tenant received a letter from their landlord or a court petition, should they get in touch with housing courts as answers? Is that the number to call as well?
No, that is for questions that you may have other than your court appearance. The process will be this. The landlord decides he's going to take you to court now, let's say today. When he goes to court, he files his papers. The courts will send a notice to you, a petition that you will see from the court stating that you have been taken to court, but where there is a date and time on the courtroom number, you will see a note to be determined. What will happen is that you will be notified later on by the court because they're trying to process all of the backlogs they have right now before they do any current hearings. You'll be notified of a date, probably be no earlier than the end of January going into February 2021. So they will tell you which courtroom number you will go to, the time and date of your hearing. And you will also be notified on those documents that you're entitled to free legal assistance, and they will tell you where to go as well. You cannot call the court to get specific information about your case. This is where housing court answers come in. And in the Bronx, we have Bronx Legal Services, who is one of the primary community legal services that housing courts will be sending your cases to. Their number is 917-661-4500. At that number, you could have specific answers. And how the attorneys there will let you know whether or not your case is ready, and they will give you advice as to what to do. They will make schedules for you to do an online intake. You'll be assigned an attorney, and then they will plan with you to go to court.
Got it.
The possibilities are that your first hearing is going to be postponed because the attorney is going to need to speak with you to find out what is going on, what problems or issues you may have with your defenses. So your case probably is not going to be heard the first time you go to court.
Okay.
So we are looking at another 6 months if you get, if the process starts today, probably another 5-6 months before you actually will be going to court.
Fitzroy, thank you again so much for joining us once more to give this much needed information and these updates regarding tenant and housing rights, resident rights here in the Bronx. I'm going to share those numbers right now with our viewers, and I invite them to also follow CASA Bronx on social media if they have any questions regarding resources, updates regarding tenant rights. So thank you again for your time. We've run out of time. Thank you.
Okay, and again, it's my pleasure to be getting this information with your assistance to our folks in the Bronx. And you have a very wonderful day and be safe.
You as well. Again, folks, you can follow at CASA Bronx on social media for updates, resources, and information regarding your rights as a tenant in the Bronx. If you are a tenant in need of legal services, you may call the Bronx Legal Services Hotline at 917-661-4500. That hotline is 24/7. And if you have any questions regarding housing courts, you may call the Housing Courts Answers 9 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. That hotline number is 212-962-4795. We will be right back.